Arthur was an old man, his days painted in the muted tones of solitude. Years had passed since Martha, his wife, had left his world, taking with her its vibrant colors and easy laughter. Now he lived alone, his house a sanctuary of quiet routine, coffee, strong and black, a slice of sweet bread, often from the day before, and then the long hours spent at the window. The street outside unspooled like a silent film, its actors distant, their drummers unheard. He was a spectator, shielded by glass and the quiet dignity of age. One sun-bleached afternoon, during his customary slow walk, this carefully constructed quiet was shattered. He ambled past an old, forgotten adobe wall, its bricks crumbling, surrendering to time and weather. It was then he heard it, a sound that bypassed his ears and struck a resonant, painful chord deep within his chest. It wasn't a bark, sharp and demanding. It wasn't a howl, mournful and wild. This was something else, a low, muted sound, like a dragged sigh pulled from the very core of a broken heart. It was a cry you felt, not with your ears, but with an instinctive clenching of your own heart. It made you stop. It made you turn. Arthur stopped, his worn shoes scuffing the dusty earth. A frown creased his weathered brow. Imagination. He whispered the word, a fragile breath against the indifferent afternoon air. He took a few hesitant steps closer to the decaying wall. He heard it again, clearer now, unmistakably alive, a long, pained whimper. It emanated from a jagged crack in the adobe. Arthur peered through. Shadows, parched earth, and then his breath hitched. He saw him, a small dog, tethered by a cruelly short rope to a rusty, forgotten gate. Its ears were pressed flat, its emaciated body cringed, desperately trying to disappear into the dirt. Its eyes, unnaturally huge in its gaunt face, were wells of unimaginable sorrow. A slow tear traced a path down its matted fur. It was caked in old dirt, ribs starkly visible. It didn't bark. It didn't move. It only wept, its misery a palpable force. A vise tightened around Arthur's chest. "What is happening here?" he murmured. Something old, long dormant within him, a capacity for outrage. A deep well of compassion began to stir. This was profoundly wrong. He moved a step closer. The dog lowered its head further in resignation. Arthur looked around. "No one. This cannot stay like this," he whispered, his voice cracking. That night, sleep eluded Arthur. The image of the shrunken, sad-eyed dog haunted him. Pity, helplessness, a nascent rage, and an urgent prompting from his soul warred within him. By 7 the next morning, he was back at the alley, carrying ham bread and a bottle of water. The dog slowly lifted its head, a flicker of recognition in its sorrowful eyes. It didn't move, just watched him, its gaze a silent encyclopedia of pain. Arthur left the food and water. He saw no nearby house, just an abandoned, overgrown backyard. The rope was tied to a rusty pipe embedded in the crumbling wall. Someone had deliberately left it here, someone new. A flush of anger surged through him. He walked home, his steps heavy with resolve. He fumbled for his old phone and dialed. "Police, hello," he began. "I don't know if this is an emergency, but there's a dog, suffering, alone, tied up, it's fading." A cold, automatic voice replied. "Exact address, sir, Jasmine Street, at the end, by the house with broken walls, the abandoned one. Is it in immediate danger?" Arthur hesitated. "Danger? Look, if it stays there it will die." He hung up, frustrated. Hours passed. Nothing. He returned in the afternoon. The bread lay untouched, the water spilled. The dog, unchanged, seemed a permanent fixture of misery. Arthur touched the cool walls, then shouted, "Anyone here? Is this your dog?" "Hey." Only silence answered. Abandonment, he realized, doesn't always scream. This dog had been silent for so long, but Arthur had heard, and now he wouldn't be silent either. That night Arthur wasn't alone. He'd spoken to Mr. Gable, the kind pastry seller who knew the neighborhood's pulse, and Sarah, a young woman living near the abandoned house. Neither had known about the dog. "Really?" Sarah had asked, her eyebrow arched in disbelief. "I pass there all the time. I never heard him." "He doesn't bark," Arthur explained gravely. "He only weeps." That phrase struck Sarah deeply. She went with him to the alley. Peering over the wall, she gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God," she murmured. "How long has he been like this?" "I don't know," Arthur replied. "But we can't ignore it anymore." The dog's silent suffering became a collective sound. Sarah brought a soft blanket. Mr. Gable arrived with a container of chicken and rice, its comforting aroma a stark contrast to the desolation. Arthur carried a flashlight. They approached cautiously. There he was, head down. But as he sensed their steps, he looked up just for a second. In that fleeting moment, amidst the sadness and exhaustion, a tiny, almost extinguished spark of hope flickered in his eyes. "We're getting you out, little one," Sarah whispered. The dog made a valiant effort to stand, its thin legs trembling violently. It managed only inches before collapsing. "He can't anymore," exclaimed Mr. Gable, tears welling in her kind eyes. "This is a crime," Arthur stated, his voice firm. The story was no longer just his and the dog's. It had become the neighborhood's. The next day, 5 people stood by the wall. A concerned woman brought a bucket of fresh water. A young boy left a piece of cake carefully wrapped. Someone asked about animal control. "Yes, but no one came," Arthur said, his frustration evident. Fueled by a shared sense of urgency, someone posted a photo on Facebook. Another neighbor shared a video. Comments poured in outrage, sympathy, offers of help. Neighbors, galvanized, called the police again, and others contacted a local NGO. The dog, oblivious to the digital storm, simply watched. Then, almost imperceptibly, it wagged its tail a little, a tentative twitch, as if daring to ask if something different was truly happening. Then he cried. Not the muted, internal cry, but a clear, sharp, almost human whimper. It was a sound that brought fresh tears to Mr. Gable and made Arthur clench his teeth, a soft curse escaping him. "I swear," he vowed, "this time, we won't fail you." That cry was no longer alone. It finally had an echo. The following morning, the alley was no longer forgotten. There was movement, murmurs of concern. Sarah stood by the fence, her eyes red from a sleepless night. Mr. Gable arrived with her pastry basket sitting on an overturned bucket. Arthur stood with him, leaning on his cane, a notebook in his shaky hand. "If they don't come today, I'm going to the city hall," he declared, around 10 a.m. Their persistence paid off. A van from a small, local animal rescue organization arrived. 2 volunteers emerged, Ben, a man with a kind face, and Lena, a tall young woman with a serious, determined expression. "Where is he?" Lena asked. Arthur led them. The dog was still there, perhaps thinner, quieter, but he heard their steps and raised his head. Something in his eyes shifted, a subtle recognition, as if his weary body finally recognized a chance. Lena knelt by the wall, speaking softly. "Hello, little one. We're here." The dog tilted his head, his gaze asking, "Is it really true?" The small gate to the yard was locked with a thick, rusty padlock. "Damn," Ben muttered. "Who puts a dog there and locks it up?" Sarah said, her voice tight with anger. "Someone without a soul." Lena called the police again. This time, the response was different. The case was reported, backed by photos, videos, witnesses, and community outrage. More neighbors gathered. "This is abuse," a woman sobbed. "This is inhuman," Arthur added. Suddenly, the side door of the dilapidated house creaked open. A disheveled man emerged, torn shirt, tired face, empty eyes. Silence fell. He looked at the dog, then at the people, saying nothing. Lena faced him. "Is this dog yours?" He didn't answer. "How long since you fed him?" she pressed. He lowered his head. Arthur stepped forward. "What kind of person leaves a living being to die like a stone?" The man just mumbled. "I didn't know what to do with him." "Well, letting him cry wasn't an option," Sarah shouted, eyes blazing. Lena, meanwhile, had forced the padlock. A click, and the metal gave. They entered. For the first time in days, perhaps weeks, a gentle hand touched the dog. Lena knelt, stroking his head with a softness that seemed alien to his suffering. The dog closed his eyes, not in fear, but in what looked like profound relief. Ben carefully wrapped his fragile, emaciated body in a blanket. The animal didn't resist, he let himself be carried. As they passed the gate, into the street, the assembled neighbors erupted in spontaneous applause. It was a sound of victory, of compassion triumphant. And the dog, for the first time in who knows how long, managed a weak but definite wag of his tail. Ben and Lena handled him with utmost care. "Come on, champ, the worst is over," Ben murmured, settling him in the car. Arthur approached. "Take him somewhere they'll call him by his name," he said quietly. "He didn't even have that here." Lena looked at him tenderly. "And what would you name him?" Arthur paused. a thoughtful expression on his face. Then a rare smile touched his lips. Pip, because only a brave little seed of a heart, a tiny Pip, survives so much pain. Leaner nodded. Perfect. From today, he is Pip. The car started slowly, pulling away amidst more applause and a few shed tears. A heavy, respectful silence descended. The owner watched from the sidewalk, unmoving, silent. Sarah gave him a hard look. You didn't deserve his glance, but he loved you anyway. Mr. Gable eyed him. And that's what hurts most. Dogs love even those who forget them. The man didn't reply. It didn't matter anymore. The story was Pip's now. At the shelter, Pip was met by Alina, a volunteer with kind gray hair and gentle hands. She wrapped him in another clean blanket, carefully cleaned his dirt-caked paws, and offered him water. He sniffed it, then drank, and drank, as if he hadn't tasted water in weeks. Good boy, Pip, Alina whispered. A vet checked his frail body, old wounds, scabs, irritated skin, ticks, and severe emaciation. But his eyes were most noticeable. He stared, trying to decide if he could trust, if this kindness was real. Each approach made him tilt his head. Is this love, or another trap? They gave him a soft bed. He didn't use it at first, curling in a corner, watching. That night, when all was quiet, Pip crawled slowly to the blanket, sniffed it, and let out a deep sigh, not a bark, not a cry, but a sound of profound release. He slept, in peace, for the first time in a long, long while. 3 days passed. Pip began his slow recovery. He ate little, slept much, but with each morning, his tail wagged a bit more, a hopeful metronome. In the neighborhood, Pip became a legend. Did you hear about Pip? People asked. Sarah and others organized a collection. Blankets, food, old toys, money. Arthur brought a handwritten note. For you, Pip. I didn't know you, but I saw you. That changed my life. Thank you for reminding me true love sometimes has 4 paws, and a gaze that never gives up. Even the little girl from 2B, always scared of dogs, drew Pip on a cloud. The shelter volunteers were amazed. All this for one dog? Alina asked. Yes, Lena said, her eyes shining. Because this dog gave a whole neighborhood its soul back. One morning, Arthur visited the shelter, clean shirt, polished cane, a bag of dog cookies in hand. May I see him? He asked Alina. Pip, lying down, half asleep, sensed familiar steps. He lifted his head, sniffed the air, then got up and walked, wobbly but determined, to the gate of his enclosure. Arthur knelt. Remember me, little one? Pip wagged his tail, not hard, not joyful, but with quiet recognition, as if saying, You were the first. Then Pip rested his head gently against Arthur's leg. It was a conscious gesture, a silent hug. Arthur, who hadn't cried in years, felt tears stream down his face. He said nothing, just stroked Pip's head, whispering, Thank you. Thank you for not giving up. Days turned into weeks. Pip walked more steadily. He was still thin, but the fragility was gone. His eyes shone with a nascent light. Occasionally, a soft, tentative bark escaped him, testing a voice no longer choked with pain. The rescue video went viral. Donations poured in, along with letters and drawings. Pip's story awakened a deeper sense of responsibility in the community. A small neighborhood animal support group formed. A news sign appeared at the park entrance. See a suffering dog? Don't look away. Be like Arthur. Do something. Arthur became a quiet hero. Every afternoon, he visited the shelter. Pip waited for him. It was their time. Arthur sat on a garden bench. Pip lay at his feet. Neither spoke much. Their companionship was a shared, comfortable silence. One afternoon, Alina approached Arthur. What if Pip stayed with you, Arthur? She asked gently. Arthur blinked, momentarily stunned. With me? Yes, Alina affirmed. He knows you. He looks for you. He waits for you. He loves you. Arthur looked down. It's been years since I had anyone at home, he said quietly. I thought that silence was normal, part of life. Now I realize it wasn't silence. It was loneliness. Pip looked up at him, his eyes noble and trusting. Then Arthur, his own eyes glistening, said, If he wants to, Alina, I want to too. Alina smiled warmly. I think he chose you a while ago, Arthur. That same week, it was official. Arthur arrived at the shelter with new bowls, a bag of special food, 2 toys, and a new bed. Pip walked out beside him, not running or jumping, but with slow, sure steps, like one who knows he is returning home. As they left, the sky turned gold with the setting sun. People watched them pass, some clapping, some crying. Children shouted, "Goodbye, Pip, you earned it." Arthur glanced at him. "Yes, you earned it, champ. You earned the right to believe again." Pip just wagged his tail, not hard, not anxious, but with a deep, settled calm. Pip's first night in his new home was different. Arthur had prepared everything. The bed by the window, 2 new dishes, a cushion, home sweet home. Pip entered slowly, sniffing every corner, as if he couldn't believe walls now protected him. He stopped by a chair, stood still. Arthur knelt, with effort. "You can move, little one. No ropes here anymore." Pip looked at him, understanding. He took 2 small steps, then lay down, not on the bed, not on the cushion, but at Arthur's feet, where his heart already felt safe. Days turned into a beautiful routine. Morning coffee on the porch, Arthur with his cup, Pip watching pigeons. Midday walks to the park. "Look who's here," kids shouted. Good old Pip. One day, he wagged his tail, then let himself be petted. Eventually, he barked her happy. "I am here," everyone celebrated. Arthur's quiet house now had rhythm. He cooked chicken and rice to share. His doorbell, once silent, chimed often. "Mr. Arthur, can Pip come out to play?" The silence that once surrounded him no longer hurt. It was a shared silence, filled with warmth. One day, a letter arrived at the shelter, addressed to Arthur. "Thank you. You didn't just save a dog. You reminded us all what truly matters. That every look, every wagging tail, is a story worth telling. And you told it with love. No signature." Arthur smiled and kept it in his nightstand, beside his wife's photos. That night, Pip asleep beside him, Arthur whispered, "I promise you, this story won't end here." Weeks became months. Pip was the neighborhood dog, everyone's friend, a symbol. Arthur changed most. He no longer stooped. He told jokes, laughed aloud. Lena from the shelter called, "Mr. Arthur, would you bring Pip to an activity with children at a school?" "Children? Yes. We think he could teach them something very special." Arthur looked at Pip, sleeping, trusting. "If he wants to, I'll take him." At the primary school, curious faces. When Pip entered, a magical silence fell. He walked slowly, wagging his tail. Alina told his story. "Pip is here to teach you. Every living being deserves love." A boy approached Pip, sat beside him. Pip rested his head on the boy's leg. The boy cried, not from sadness, but relief. Pip became a canine therapist, visiting schools, homes, the elderly. He just sat, looked tenderly. Sarah said, "This dog is healing everyone." Without a single word, Arthur thought, "He healed me first." Time passed gently. Pip was strong, joyful, light. One Sunday on their walk, Arthur felt something different. Pip walked slower, tired mate. Pip looked at him, continued his short-stepped walk. At the park, he lay under his favorite tree. Arthur sat beside him in their meaningful silence. That night, Pip ate, drank, lay on his bed. Arthur stroked his head. "Good night, Pip. I love you very much." Pip looked up, wagged his tail once, closed his eyes, and slept. This time he slept so deeply, so profoundly, he didn't wake up. The next morning, the silence felt new, a silence of farewell. Pip lay peacefully. Arthur sat beside him. "Thank you," he said, "for teaching me to live again." And then he wept, as one only weeps when one has truly loved. News spread. The neighborhood stopped. The school held a minute's silence. Flowers at Arthur's door, drawings on the park fence. Mr. Gable organized a small ceremony. He wasn't just a dog. He was a teacher. In Pip's honor, Arthur founded Pip's Promise, a wagging tail, a beating heart. Every week, with Sarah, Alina, and neighbors, they visited abandoned areas, rescued, fed, stroked. In every sad look, they saw Pip. He hadn't left. Pip was in children's laughter, in Arthur's renewed voice, in every soul that loved animals again because of him. Pip's Promise grew. Under Pip's favorite tree, the neighborhood placed a small stone plaque. Here rested the bravest heart. Pip, the dog who awakened our souls. Someone always left a flower, a child bred, an adult a thought. Arthur went weekly, spoke softly of his week. A local reporter approached Arthur. "Are you the one with the dog?" "Yes." "Can we tell your story?" He thought, "Tell it, but not as mine. Tell it as everyone's." Pip wasn't just mine. He was the neighborhood's. The article was shared thousands of times, for its beauty, its simplicity, its message. One day, Arthur walked with his new dog, a small mutt rescued from a highway. A child approached. Is that Pip?" Arthur Nell smiled. "No, son, Pip isn't here anymore, but if you close your eyes for a moment and listen very carefully, maybe you can feel him close to your heart." The child did. For a second, he swore he heard a tail wag. He smiled. Pip didn't need words. He just needed to be seen, heard, loved. Sometimes life doesn't shout. It weeps softly. Pip was that cry. He was seen by one who listened. That was enough. It was a story of transformation. Pip taught unconditional love. Remember this. Out there might be a dog like Pip, his rope of indifference. When that happens, don't look away. Be like Arthur. Do something. For that living being, it can be everything. This story doesn't end. As long as someone tells it, listens, remembers Pip. He is still here. Thank you, Pip, for showing us even a broken soul can teach the world to love better.